Mermaid Junkies, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I just had a really good conversation with my publishing company for my book, and so I'm super excited. I mean, I'm always excited, but like I'm super excited. Like today it was really a good conversation. It was really good. So I have Oliver here, and we just went outside and played for a little while, and he is kaput. I think he's taking a little siesta. So today, the video that I wanted to talk about relationships. And do you feel like that if you've been dating or you've been trying to manifest your soulmate or twin flame, and you just can't seem to stay in a relationship because it always goes to crap after a certain amount of time, right? The honeymoon period of dating is like 3 months, get maximum 6 months, and then it starts to go awry. I'm just going off to statistics, I think, for the most part. And the reason I'm going to explain to you why you can't stay in a relationship if this is what's happening to you. So what I wanted to talk about was the main thing, and I think I did a video about this like 4 years ago, and it was like the mirrored reflections of yourself. And basically I was talking about like I think it was like, are you a giver and a taker, or an Ariel and a, are you an Ariel or a pirate? Something like that. Maybe I'll put the link below. But I kind of wanted to reiterate a couple of those things and go into like a little bit more detail about relationships. And if you have been unsuccessful in relationships, or you feel like you're in a relationship now and you're starting to see little signs of wear and tear in that relationship, and it's not as, you know, fairy tale-ish anymore as it was in the beginning when you first started dating this person. And the number one reason is because, like I said so many times, is that we are conditioned in relationships. And we, most of the time in a relationship, doesn't make you a bad person. It didn't mean, in the past, I used to do the same thing with my old relationships, is that I would use the other person as my object of attention. And then when they no longer fulfilled those particular needs that weren't being met within me internally, what I was trying to do was fulfill those internal needs of myself through another person externally, and it never works. And so many times, I think in relationships too, people, I've even heard people say, oh, well, all relationships, they all turn out, I mean, it's never going to be, fairy tales for the rest of your life or whatever. But listen, if you're with your soulmate or your twin flame and you've learned how to have laser focus on having that unconditional love for your spouse or your mate or your companion or your significant other, you can actually, it is possible to have a fairy tale relationship, because I have one and I know, and I'm not lying anymore. I'm very transparent with that. And I think that turns some people off, because I think it's a reflection of them, of thinking like, oh, that can't happen, that's not true, that doesn't exist. And it does actually exist. I know it's hard to believe, but it actually does exist. But like I was saying, okay, so number one, the reason is that you, if you have gotten in a relationship, say you were in a relationship before, most people have been in relationships, right? So if you've gotten in a relationship and you're dating this person and everything's blissful and wonderful, and everything they do and everything they say is just magical, and they couldn't be the more perfect human being on the planet, right? Give it about 3 months, and then you start going, I don't like that he does this, or that freaking annoys me. I can't stand when he does that. I wish he wouldn't do that. Or I don't like this and this about her, or I don't like this and this about him. And so you start to find those little teeny things that bother you about them. And it's because when you're looking at this person, you no longer are looking at them as your object of attention, basically how the universe sees this particular person any longer. And the reason in the beginning that it was all, bliss and fairy tale is because When you go into a relationship, you are seeing this person and you are actually in alignment. Have you ever noticed that when you get in, or you fall in love, or you find somebody to start dating or whatever, and you're just like, you're so super happy, it just seems like everything melts away, and it's like, for the most part, like having love in your life makes you so feel complete, sort of. It's because you're in alignment when you're looking at this person, and when you see them, you see an internal parts of yourself. And they're putting you on a pedestal at the same time because they're seeing you in alignment. But then what starts to happen is those same exact things that you really liked about that person are going to begin to annoy you. And let me explain. And I like I said, I will link the video, the previous video that I did like 4 years ago about this, is that it's because you never mated with your own soul before you try to find a soulmate, a companion, or a twin flame. And if you don't heal those broken aspects of you, and I shouldn't say that they're really broken, because we shouldn't look at them as like they're a negative or bad thing if we have unhealed parts of us, because everybody does. And it's like a journey, it's a process, and it's always going to be a process. But as long as you're really working at, your goal is to do that inner soul work for yourself. And you can't use someone else to fulfill needs that need to be met by you and you only. And so that's what's happening, is that you're looking to this other person outside of yourself to heal those broken aspects of you that are not healed yet. And so, like I said, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so in my relationship, in my marriage previous, and in another relationship that I had, when I met up with this particular people and began a relationship with them, I was seeing all these wonderful things, and oh, this is wonderful, and this is wonderful, and oh, they're great, and whatever, and like they could walk on water, and I just thought that they were just the most blissful thing ever, right? But what started to happen after I was in the relationship for a little while, the things that I thought that they were going to fix for me, see, I was looking outside of myself, was the main reason, or one of the main things that I needed to heal within myself, that I had always sought out men to heal for me, which never works. But subconsciously, we're doing these things. We don't know that we're actually, oh, it's a little dove. Aww. What we're doing is we're seeking to heal something internally in us through another person. And so what I would do is realize that subconsciously I was finding these men that I wanted to nurture me and rescue me. I wanted them to take care of me and make me feel good, right? And so what I would do is I would realize after the honeymoon phase went away in the relationship that they actually were the exact thing that I was seeking to heal within myself, but they were broken in that way as well. So you mirror reflect yourself in every person that you're with. And so what was once something that you thought that you could heal through another person, which was me to be rescued and to feel nurtured, was actually something that this person was lacking, that I was in a relationship with as well. They were feeling they needed that unmet need taken care of, which was they wanted me to heal and nurture and rescue them. And so what you're doing when you're in these relationships is you're actually seeking yourself in these other people. But what we have to do is seek to heal those parts of us that need healing within ourselves. Because the only relationship that we're seeking is the you within you. And if we can come to understand that, and so I think a lot of times people will continue on in unhealthy, codependent relationships, even though they know, like, you know that it's time to get out. You know it's time to release yourself and release those burdens and become, to become more aware and to start working on your soul, your inner soul work. And I think many times people are very frightened and very fearful of doing that because of, oh, what's going to happen, this, and you start thinking of all the things that are negative. You know, this belief system that everybody's trained you into believing that, like, oh, your life's going to be shot to hell because this is what's happening. But you know what? Everything's going to be so blissfully wonderful when you begin to look internally and start healing those unhealed parts of yourself that you need to heal. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go back and because this is what therapists do, and it's like the worst thing that you can do if you're practicing law of attraction is to go and, like, you think you're going to get to the bottom of every freaking piece of a relationship that you're in with your spouse or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, you know, oh, I have years of distrust with this person, and I have years of resentment with this person, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you have to learn that you've got to do the inner soul work. You can't keep putting the responsibility of your own work onto someone else. I mean, you can keep doing that, but you're going to keep getting the same thing over and over. You're going to keep having a crappy relationship. You're going to keep getting into the same relationships over and over. It might be a different face, a different name, a different location, but you're going to keep attracting that exact same person in your life if you don't heal those broken, unhealed aspects of your internal self that need to be repaired and healed. And so that's what I was doing. And so I think that because when I got out of my relationship with my husband, I had been working on this for several years, working on my internal soul work and trying to make peace with not using anyone else as being responsible for where I was and why I was unhappy in my life. And yes, that's going to be it's not going to be difficult for you, because I know some people think, oh my gosh, this whole, working on your inner soul work is a lot of work. And it is a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. Have you ever heard that saying of, like, when you're doing something that you love, because you ultimately love yourself, and when you're doing that, you're going to feel happy, and you're going to feel like it's not going to feel like work to you when you're doing inner soul work. You know, there's some things that are going to come up that are going to be, a little not difficult to deal with, but they're going to be contrasting moments in your life that you're going to have to come to conclusions of. There may be a lot of changes that you need to make in your life, or that you are going to want to make in your life. But just realize that the sheer thought of it being scary and that fear is just the fear alone. It's not even really fearful if you don't think about that. Just know that the universe has your back and that everything is going to work out so perfectly if you really begin to take an internal look at yourself and start having that retrospect of wanting to love yourself unconditionally, more than any other person, more than your soulmate, the person that you're in a relationship with now, or your children, or your parents, or anyone. You need to take responsibility for yourself, and you need to put yourself number one. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the most healthiest thing that you can do. But I think that really narrows it down to understanding why, if you're getting into crappy relationships, it's because you're trying to use this other person externally as a way for you to heal aspects of yourself that you have not dealt with. You have not done the inner soul work for yourself, and you're using someone else as the object of your attention to try to heal those parts of you. And you can never do that. You can't heal yourself through someone else. And so I think when I recognize that, like, I can't have my ex-husband or any relationship that I'm in, like, I have to do this. And it was very difficult, probably for like 2 months. I mean, when I would really think about it, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, this really means I'm going to have to hurt some people. But you know what? I had hurt myself for so long that it was time that I needed to love myself more than I loved other people, because I was miserable. And I no longer wanted to be unhappy, and I no longer wanted to be sad and guilt and feel resentment and anger and hostility towards other people, because I felt like every day became, in my marriage, especially like the last 7 years, became a very, not volatile in the way that, fighting and like, not, I mean, verbally, yes, arguing, but not physically or anything like that. But it became something, and I realized it one day when I was sitting at the dinner table. And I had always made light in my relationships, and I've always done this. I even did this as a child when I was in my childhood growing up in my home, is that I was the only girl, and I had 3 brothers, or I still have 3 brothers, but I have 3 brothers. And so because my dad was he was a very hostile drunk, and so when he would get drunk and stuff, my mom would be very protective as far as the children, but I, for my brothers, was the peacemaker. Like, I wanted to always, scuttle them around and put them where I thought that was safe, or come in the bedroom with me and be quiet, or like stay out of the line of fire, so to speak. And I transferred that same behavior onto my relationships with men. And so what I would do is cover them. And so that I could pretend, because that's the only way as a little girl, I'm thinking psychologically now as an adult, is that that's the only way that I was able to survive, was to be able to mask it and to make it seem fairy tale so that I could survive and be a happy little girl, even though there was horrific things going on around me, if that makes any sense. So what I did is I transferred that same protective nature onto the men that I was with. So if they had a bad behavior, or if they were acting like an ass, I would cover them. I would make it okay. I would somehow make a joke, or I would make light of it, or act like it didn't bother me if they said something that was actually quite demeaning and rude to me. But I would slough it off because I was trying to cover it and mask it to make it okay. And so you can learn all of your behaviors that you do, that you maybe transfer onto adulthood, that you never healed from as a child. And so that was one thing. And so let me explain to you that this was like one of those straws that broke the camel's back. There was a number of them, actually, so maybe that's the wrong metaphor to use. But this was probably 6 months before I left my previous marriage. We were sitting at the dinner table and we had company over. And so for starters, I was going through this really hard time mentally, and I didn't want to entertain. I didn't want anybody to come over. I didn't want to go anywhere. And I still felt like my ex-spouse was trying to keep a facade going. All of us going to church on Sunday, when I was like, I don't want to go. And we were screaming at each other before church because I said, no, I don't want to go. And he was basically like, you have to go, get in the car, you have to go. You need to, like just hounding me until I would do it. And so anyway, so we're sitting at dinner, and we have these men from church that are over. It was the missionaries, actually, if you're Mormon or ex-Mormon, and And so these young boys were being so nice and everything and polite and stuff. And because I wasn't feeling super well, and I really didn't want to entertain, because I knew it was going to have to be me making conversation at the table. I didn't want to help set the table. Like, I just didn't want to do any of it, you guys. And I felt like I was being coerced into like, no, I already made this appointment. They're coming over and they're going to be here in 20 minutes. And I was just irritated. Like, I was upset that I was being forced to do something that I didn't want to do. And so we're sitting there at dinner and everything. And so the first thing that happened was the dinner was being made and everything, because I was like, no, I really don't want to cook or anything. And so my ex was like, well, you need to set the table, and you need to, you need to do this. You need to participate and be part of the family. And so he was saying all of these things to me. And I'm like, I really don't want to entertain. I don't want to entertain. And so I was getting upset because I was really angry. I'm starting to get pissed, So we're sitting there, and in the dinner, and this is when I finally realized I had had enough and I wasn't going to deal with anybody treating me disrespectfully anymore, is that he absolutely humiliated me at the dinner table and made me feel like it was something to do with like, I don't keep a house and I don't cook and I don't do anything. And like, it was kind of like this derogatory remark, like, well, it's the least you can do is get up and get them something to drink. It was something like that. And I made light of it, But then I immediately recognized, because I was really starting to do a lot of inner soul work at that time, and I thought, I'm not going to sit here and deal with that. Like, no one's going to humiliate me in front of these people anymore. Like, this is not going to happen. And so I put my napkin down. I said, you can serve the missionaries, and I'm not feeling very well. And I got up from the table and went in the bedroom and stayed there for the rest of the night and didn't talk to him. Because I realized at that point that I was done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when you've had it so long up to there, and then it was starting to reflect outwardly when people were around. And I'm like, how long am I going to keep covering this up and masking this to make it seem like, oh, we're in a good relationship, when you could feel it? Like, now I think when I go around anybody and I end up being in a situation where there's a couple, you know, a married couple or something like that, which hasn't been very often, but there's been a couple of times that that because I'm living such a transparent life now, I can detect that energy immediately. I can detect if people are rigid and upset with each other. I even know when, like, if my family member's upset and they haven't ever even said anything. I sense it because I'm very intuitive in that way. And that's one thing you'll realize is once you start to become very transparent and energetically and think about your vibration and your vibrational energy all the time, you're going to pick up on little subtleties like that everywhere. Like, that energy just permeates everything, and it's a beautiful it's like the universe saying, look, like, this is your report card. You know when you're not energetically aligned, you know. And so I think that those were some paramount things in my life. I mean, there's numerous ones, but I just wanted to give you an example of what happens when you use somebody else externally to try to fix yourself, because ultimately that's what we're really after, is until we can really become aligned and heal those broken aspects of ourselves, we can never really have a healthy relationship. We just can't. It's going to start out really wonderful, but then it's going to go awry. It just will, until you're connected with yourself and you know that you love yourself so unconditionally that no one can come in between you and you, if that makes any sense. So, do you guys like having Oliver? Like, isn't he? He's so sweet. I love him so much. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Yes, he's a good boy. But anyway, I hope that this was very helpful to you. And if you have any questions, just email me at Raquel@RaquelCarter.com. Or leave me a reply, like a comment, and I usually reply to all my comments. And I hope that you have a lovely day. And as always, I'm yours until my next swim. Ciao.